Joining me now is Michael Rothfeld, investigative reporter for The New York Times and co-author of The Fixers, The Bottom Feeders, Crooked Lawyers, Gossip Mongers, and Porn Stars Who Created the 45th President. Michael was part of the Wall Street Journal reporting team that won the Pulitzer Prize in 2019 for its investigation of Trump's hush money payments, and he was name-checked several times at trial today. Michael, thank you for being here. Let me first we learned today in court that it was your correspondence that first informed Hope Hicks about Karen McDougal and the scandal that had yet to break open. I'll just read a little bit of the transcript from court today. This is Matthew Colangelo from the prosecution. When did you first hear the name Karen McDougal? Hicks. November 4th, 2016. Colangelo, and in what context did you first hear the name Karen McDougal? Hicks, I received an inquiry from a reporter at the Wall Street Journal asking questions about her and the National Enquirer. Colangelo, who was the reporter you heard from? Hicks, Michael Rothfeld. Can you take us back to that moment, Michael, and tell us about what it was like?
Well, we had been chasing this story actually for about a month at the Journal. We had gotten a tip that there was a lawyer who was paying off women for Trump before the election, and we had narrowed it down actually to two women, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels, and eventually were able to obtain the contract that Karen McDougal had with the parent company of the National Enquirer, which led to the story that you were just talking about, and the election was rapidly approaching, so obviously we were trying to move very quickly to get the story before the election. We knew Stormy Daniels was also talking about selling her story or telling her story, but we hadn't nailed that down at that point, but we did nail down the Karen McDougal story.
Did you have a sense of how directly connected Donald Trump was to the McDougal payments?
Well, we knew that David Pecker, who ran the National Enquirer and American media, had a long relationship with Trump going back a couple of decades. So we had a sense that this was done to protect Trump. I mean, this was the first time anyone had reported the term catch and kill in this context, that Pecker had caught the story for Trump and killed it. We did not have a direct connection at that time to Trump. We suspected it, which is why, in the days before that email that I sent to Hope Hicks, we were talking to the National Enquirer primarily because they had paid Karen McDougal $150,000. We wanted to establish that, and we suspected strongly that Trump was connected to it. But the evidence for that would emerge slowly, in the months and the years after we reported that story.
In the end, in your report, Hope Hicks is noted as a Trump campaign spokesperson who said of the agreement with Ms. McDougal, "We have no knowledge of any of this." Hicks said that Ms. McDougal's claim of an affair with Mr. Trump was totally untrue. In retrospect, what do you make of that? I guess I'll call it mendacity, but I mean, maybe she didn't even realize she was lying because, again, Hope Hicks was clearly not that familiar with what happened here.
Yeah, I don't know that Hope knew about it. I mean, obviously, she was speaking for the campaign. I believe that she didn't know about it. I mean, I don't 100% know, but she says that she did not. Donald Trump, as we now know, did have correspondence with David Pecker and Michael Cohen about paying off Karen McDougal over the summer before she was paid in August. So, clearly she was misled. And, I suspected that probably was not true, that Donald Trump did not know about it. But, that was the campaign's response, and they denied it. They also denied he had any relationship with Stormy Daniels.
Throughout this, the prosecution seems repeatedly trying to make this point that the campaign was very concerned about these allegations, regardless of whether they were true or not, and that indeed this sort of panic that it caused internally helps explain why the payments were in turn later made to Stormy Daniels. Can you give me a sense, as a reporter on the other side, what you imagined or knew the reaction to be inside Trump world?
Well, I could imagine there was a lot going on at that time. I mean, there was a Hillary Clinton email scandal going on. I mean, we were just a few days out from the election. We know now from the inside and from the emails and the texts and calls that Hope Hicks had with Michael Cohen that they were very concerned about what impact the Karen McDougal story would have. It did not have an earth-shattering effect with all the other noise, but what really in that period of time informed the Stormy Daniels deal was the Access Hollywood tape, because that had happened even before we reported the Karen McDougal story around October 7th. So we reported that in early November, but as of when the Access Hollywood tape was reported, that jump-started Michael Cohen's negotiations with Stormy Daniels to pay her, and they actually negotiated the deal a few days after the Access Hollywood tape came out, and she had been trying to sell that way earlier in the campaign, but was unable to until that point. Michael Cohen then delayed paying, and in fact didn't do it until the very end of October.
Right. We know that there were a lot of efforts to quash stories that could be harmful to the campaign. And what was interesting to me today is that Hope Hicks testified that she reached out to Jared Kushner when she found out the Journal was working on this story.
Right.
Jared Kushner has a relationship with Rupert Murdoch to see if Kushner could entreat Murdoch to buy some time. Were you aware of any efforts being made to slow the publication of your story?
No, definitely not. And I mean, I think she testified that Kushner had told her he wasn't going to do that and she should just respond. But I can tell you that we never at the Journal had any interference from Rupert Murdoch or anyone below him when we were going to publish those stories. We were able to get them in. I mean, even the Stormy Daniels story, which was more sensitive because it was the president's lawyer. He was now the president, and involving a porn star, it was more direct tie. The Journal published those stories. We published that on the front page. There was absolutely no qualms.
Yeah, and it became
Except
part of
being
his...
right. We wanted to be right. I mean,
exactly.
That was the main thing.
Well, and it is obviously you got it done because it's part of the prosecution's argument today in the first criminal trial of Donald Trump. Michael Rothfeld, a sort of central cast member in today's testimony today. Really appreciate your time and thoughts. The perspective is invaluable. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Alex.